ॐ शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। Ashtavakra Gita, or also called Ashtavakra Samhita, is a text which can serve as an effective means for nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is a process of meditation wherein the seeker, the mumukshu, attempts to entertain continuously such thoughts or Atma-chintana which helps to appreciate our own true nature, the Atma-swarupa. The regular and consistent practice of nididhyasana for a sufficient period of time finally leads to the direct cognition of Atma-swarupa. It finally leads to the direct cognition or the experience of Atma-swarupa, which itself is Brahman, the very basis, the adhisthana of the Jagat. By sufficient practice, or what is called abhyasa, of such cognizing, that is, experiencing our true nature, Atma, the mind gets absorbed in Atma Swarupa at will. Ashtavakra Gita is not a text of Atma Nirupana, unfoldment of Atma in detail, which can help the mumukshu to ascertain one's own true nature. It can deal with Atma Nirupana in detail. This is a text of declaration of the discoveries or the revelation about Atma Swarupa as experienced by a master and also a disciple, tallying with the discovery of the master. It reconfirms or reaffirms the truth at the highest level as declared in the scriptures. Ashtavakra tests the disciple Janaka from different standpoints in order to ascertain the correctness of his knowledge, the correctness of his Atma Jnana, and his steadfastness, Nishtha, in the Atma Jnana. The disciple Janaka proves his excellence. Ashtavakra Gita can serve as a rapid reader to those who have exposed to Vedanta for a long period with due sadhana chatushtaya sampatti and a shuddha antakarana. One can relive the in-depth discoveries about Atma Swarupa that one had in Shravana and Manana. Actually, for those who have undergone or have exposed to the unfoldment of Atma for a long, no teaching or commentary of Ashtavakra Gita is required. The text reveals the truth uncompromisingly on its own. All that such mumukshus need is only a correct translation of these verses in case the proficiency in Sanskrit language is not there. Like Mandukya Karika, the text Ashtavakra Gita is recommended only after the thorough study of Vedantic texts like Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra, and other important Prakarana Granthas. There is a word of caution, please. Ashtavakra Gita speaks of naked truth. A novice or those who lack staunch vairagya may arrive at wrong conclusions from Ashtavakra Gita, which can be detrimental to them. Before entering into the text, let us know about the master Ashtavakra, who was a very high eminent Vedaveta sage. Uddalaka's son is Shvetaketu, who was an expert in Mantra Shastra. This Shvetaketu is the same as the one who is found in 6th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad. Shvetaketu had the darshana of goddess Saraswati. Ashtavakra was the son of Kahoda, and Kahoda was a disciple of Uddalaka, and Shvetaketu actually is the maternal uncle, mama of Ashtavakra. Both Ashtavakra and Shvetaketu were eminent Vedavetas of that age. Ashtavakra was distorted in 8 limbs or 8 places in his body. His mother is Sujata. Sujata is the daughter of Uddalaka. She was the wife of Kahoda, who was the disciple of Uddalaka. While in womb, once Ashtavakra told his father, who was reciting Vedas amidst the Shishyas, "Father, whole night you practice recitation of Vedas, and yet your pronunciation is not clear." Hearing this statement of Ashtavakra, who was still in the womb, the annoyed father cursed, "Even from womb you speak crooked things, so your body will be crooked at 8 places, in 8 limbs." Though Shvetaketu was mama, maternal uncle of Ashtavakra, both Ashtavakra and Shvetaketu were of the same age. Kahoda, the father of Ashtavakra, was a pauper. He was very poor. While pregnant, his wife Sujata requested the husband to get some money for her delivery expenses. Kahoda went to Janaka, but unfortunately was defeated by the courtier Dandi and was drowned in the ocean as per the terms of discussion or the terms of debate. Father Uddalaka told the daughter Sujata not to disclose this fact to the child Ashtavakra. As a result of this, Ashtavakra was not aware of this fact that his father was not there and was considering the grandfather Uddalaka as his own father, and he considered Shvetaketu as his brother. When Ashtavakra was 12 years old, once while sitting on the lap of Uddalaka, Shvetaketu came and, wanting to sit on father's lap, cried and pulled Ashtavakra, telling, "This is not your father's lap." So Ashtavakra was pained. So Ashtavakra asked his mother, who told the truth, fearing the curse from her son. That night, Ashtavakra persuaded his mama Shvetaketu that they will go to Janaka's yajna, where many interesting things will be there, like hearing great Vedic chanting, sumptuous food, etc. Both of them decided to go to the yajna of Janaka. On their way to Yajna Mandapa, they met Janaka, who was on his way to Yajnashala, when the gatekeeper started brushing them aside. Ashtavakra told Janaka that road for all, whether king, blind, deaf, lady, etc., is the same until a Brahmin comes. But when a Brahmana comes, the Brahmana be allowed first. Janaka said, yes, what you said is true, and asked both of them, Ashtavakra and Shvetaketu, to go first wherever they want to go. Perhaps Janaka took another route, but Ashtavakra's complaint was that they are not allowed to enter the Yajnashala. These gatekeepers were not allowing them to proceed to the Yajnashala. There is a big argument between the gatekeepers who followed the command of Bandi and Ashtavakra about the eligibility to enter the Yajnashala. Finally, the gatekeeper agreed that they will try to send them inside, but Ashtavakra also should do something. What is that is expected of him to be done? The gatekeeper said, Ashtavakra, that he should praise the king Janaka loudly, because he was at the audible distance. Ashtavakra praises Janaka and requests for permission to have debate with Bandi. Janaka extols Bandi and tells Ashtavakra that he doesn't have his greatness. Bandi is great and you are not that great. But Ashtavakra claims that he is capable of having debate with Bandi and defeat him. Hearing this, Janaka was surprised, and so Janaka tests Ashtavakra, and having found him to be highly knowledgeable, praises Ashtavakra as a Vayovruddha, not Vayovruddha, Jnanavruddha. He praises Ashtavakra as the Jnanavruddha, though young in age, but very highly mature in terms of knowledge. Janaka gives his permission to Ashtavakra to enter the Yajna Mandapa and shows who the Bandi is. Ashtavakra defeats Bandi in the debate and insists that Bandi also be drowned in the ocean in the same manner as Bandi had drowned the Brahmins in the ocean. Bandi says he is the son of Varuna and he had transported all those Brahmins to Varunaloka for performing a 12 years yaga, and Varuna will bring all the Brahmins back. Ashtavakra tells Janaka not to listen to Bandi, but see that Bandi is also drowned as he did with the Brahmins. Janaka agrees, but Bandi claims that he will not come to harm by being drowned because he is the son of Varuna. He is a Varuna Putra. And right then, Bandi presents all the drowned Brahmins in the court of Janaka. Kahoda, having come to know what his son Ashtavakra has done, he praises the role of a worthy son in front of Janaka. Bandi himself enters the ocean after taking the permission of King Janaka. Ashtavakra worships his father. They reach home. Later, Father Kahoda tells Ashtavakra in the presence of Sujata to have bath in the holy river called Samanga, whereby his limbs will be straight. After that holy river bath, his crookedness goes. Later, Ashtavakra marries Suprabha, the daughter of Vadanya, after giving a very difficult test of Vairagya. There is another narration about Ashtavakra. Once Janaka had called an assembly of great scholars, which was so packed by great scholars that ordinary people had no room and so could not enter. Ashtavakra had no credentials, no recommendation, or no help of great teacher or any sponsors. He had deep faith in God. 3 days Ashtavakra waited at the gate. An observant and sympathetic old scholar reported this matter to Janaka, that there is a boy who is waiting at the gate for 3 days with a desire to enter the assembly of these great scholars. He said, the qualifications, etc. of this boy are not known. Janaka directs the attendant to find the boy and bring to him. Shortly after Janaka took his seat in the assembly of all these great scholars, and the meeting began in the solemn and sacred atmosphere befitting such an august assembly, Ashtavakra entered the hall. Seeing his crooked form, most of great scholars began to laugh. King Janaka was keenly observing the boy, but himself did not laugh. Ashtavakra carefully looked around the hall and quite inexplicably started laughing even louder than the scholars who were seated there. This laugh was actually inadmissible and surprised the scholars because it was considered as the boy's impertinence. The scholar's laugh cannot be considered as an innocent, infectious smile of a child on the shoulder of the mother to invoke laughter in Ashtavakra. One scholar took courage to ask Ashtavakra the reason of his laughing, explaining himself as to why the scholars had laughed. Ashtavakra answers, "Well, sir, I entered this gathering thinking it would be a sacred assembly convened by famous great Emperor Janaka to discuss the holy scriptures. If only I had known what kind of people were attending this assembly, I would not have bothered to come here. I waited patiently for many days and then entered this hall thinking that greatest living scholars would be assembled here. I looked forward to to be in the company of such sacred souls. But alas, I find nothing but cobblers here, only shoemakers who stitch sandals and work with leather. When they heard this, the scholars became furious, feeling very insulted by Ashtavakra for using such abusive words. But Ashtavakra continued in the same vein. Cobblers is the proper word to describe you. Only cobblers, only people who work with hides will think about the worth of a particular skin. Others will not be bothered about it. All of you are laughing at my skin and having obviously decided that it is not worth much. But not even one of you have made any effort to know my scholarship. Pandits should have the capacity to look inward, but you only seem to care about the outer covering. If you have not developed your inner vision, but are only concerned with the superficial outer vision, then you cannot be considered scholars at all. Then you are only cobblers, shoemakers, specialists in hides. Scholars hung their head in shame. King Janaka understood very well what Ashtavakra was saying. He invited Ashtavakra to take a seat in the assembly and subsequently bestowed numerous honors on him. Of course, there are other stories also about Ashtavakra, but now let us enter into this text, Ashtavakra Gita or Ashtavakra Samhita. Ashtavakra Gita is also called as Ashtavakra Samhita. Samhita means a mantra samudaya, distinct from what is called Brahmana portion of the Vedas. For example, Rik, Sama, Yaju and Atharva, these are 4 types of Samhitas. But Ashtavakra Samhita is not from the Vedas. So Samhita also means the teaching which is systematically arranged or a systematic collection or a systematically arranged collection of verses or text. For example, Sutta Samhita. You must have heard the name Sutta Samhita. Or Samhita can also mean continuous hymnical text. So here it means a teaching which is system in terms of systematically arranged collection of verses. So and it is taught by whom? Ashtavakra, because Ashtavakra is the master here, Janaka the disciple. The first chapter is called as Atmanubhava Upadesha Varnanam. Atmanubhavopadesha Varnanam. The chapter which describes the Upadesha, the teaching about Atmanubhava. Atmanubhava is the experience of Atma. What is this experience of Atma or Atmanubhava? Let us see how Bhashyakara Adi Shankaracharya defines Atmanubhava in Brahma Sutra Bhashya. We get the definition of Atmanubhava in Brahma Sutra Bhashya like this. Sarva dukkha vinirmuktaika chaitanyatmakaha aham iti eshaha Atmanubhavaha. Brahma Sutra Bhashya 4.1.2. 4th chapter, 1st pada, 2nd sutra. Eshaha Atmanubhavaha. This is Atmanubhava. This is the experience of Atma. What is that? Aham, me, is this. What is it? Sarva dukkha vinirmukta. The one, me, is the one who is totally free from all the sorrows. So, Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, Adibhautika. All the sorrows, including its cause. So, then what is your nature? Chaitanyatmakaha. I am of the nature of Chaitanya, the pure awareness principle, the pure consciousness principle. Aham, I am so. Iti eshaha. This is what is Atmanubhava. Please note, when I am sarva dukkha vinirmuktaika chaitanyatmakaha, certainly the experience is like that. Presently, when we say, oh, I am sorrowful, what is the experience? Sorrow. I am Chaitanya Swarupa. Aham Chaitanyatmakaha. I am Chaitanya Swarupa. But even now I am Chaitanya Swarupa only in the state of Ajnana. Therefore it says, Sarva Dukkha Vinirmuktaika Chaitanyatmakaha. Chaitanya Swarupa, not as experienced now as samsari sukha dukkhatmaka one, not that one, but totally free from all dukkha's, adhyatmika, adhibhautika, adhidaivika, free from janma, marana, etc., from all varieties of sorrows, free from that. Eka chaitanyatmakaha. The Eka stands for Advaya Swarupa. There is nothing other than me and me alone. Chaitanyatmaka Swarupa is there. Eshaha Atmanubhava. Eshaha points out the direct cognition, the direct experience, not paroksha. It is aparoksha. Now here, when you say Atmanubhava, you can't say that this is not experienced, but Vedas say so, and Veda is pramana, and therefore I am free from sorrow. But what is the present experience? I am a samsari, I am a dukhi. No, just as presently I experience myself as dukhi because of ignorance and the consequent adhyasa, superimposition of anatma on me. So also when ajnana is destroyed, along with that the ajnana karya, the effect of ajnana in terms of all adhyasa, including the ahankara, which is not the true nature of Atma, they get terminated, and the direct cognition of Atma Swarupa is there. So therefore, Eshaha Atmanubhavaha is the direct experience. Some have tried to translate the Anubhava word in such context as Aparoksha Jnana. This is not correct, because if you say Aparoksha Jnana, then you have to give the difference between Paroksha Jnana and Aparoksha Jnana. So actually speaking, the knowledge of any vastu which is pratyaksha and aparoksha, necessarily warrants the yathartha anubhava. If yathartha anubhava is not there, it is not knowledge of pratyaksha or aparoksha. In our case, why so? Because in both these cases, the vastu is available for direct experience. For example, the fire yonder on the mountain, which is inferred by smoke, but there is no pratyaksha seeing of the fire, because the fire is not available for seeing from the place from where you have inferred. So in paroksha, knowledge is without the experience yathartha anubhava, but in pratyaksha and aparoksha, one must necessarily have the yathartha anubhava, otherwise it is not knowledge. Also, I am samsari, I am dukkhi. This Brahma is aparoksha. This is not paroksha. This is directly experienced. The antidote for that, the remedy for that, the knowledge must be equally aparoksha, directly experienced. So this is what Atmanubhava. Here, in this experience, one difference is there from compared with the other types of experiences. In other experiences or knowledge, there is the experiencer, anubhavita, or what is called as pramata, with nothing but ahankara. If this ahankara is present in the Atmanubhava, that Atmanubhava is foul, it is not yathartha. So therefore, in this Atmanubhava, even that pramata is no more there, ahankara is no more there, and then you may ask how the experience is possible without the knower. Atma is anubhava swarupa. It doesn't need the pramata, or even at the final stage, it doesn't need the pramana. Pramana is necessary in the initial stage to negate the anatma that is superimposed on atma. That is what Bhashyakara says in the verses of Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, Bhashya of stanza 70. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sayami. In the context of that stanza, he says, pramatritvam nivartayat pramanam apramani bhavati swapna pramanavat. So at the final stage of direct cognition of Atma Swarupa, the pramana itself gets terminated, it becomes apramana. When the pramata gets extinct, and how? Like the swapna pramana. So this is what Atmanubhava, the direct cognition of Atma Swarupa. One may say Atma is Anubhava Swarupa, and therefore presently we have got already experience of it. Yes, that is true. But it is Drishya Sahita, Adhyasta Drishya Sahita, along with the whatever all that is superimposed in terms of anatma on Atma. That is not the yathartha anubhava of Atma Swarupa. That is why we need the pramana and the disposition which can directly gain the cognition or anubhava of Atma Swarupa. This is what Atma Anubhava. That pramata is not there in Atma Anubhava is elsewhere shown by giving a definition of the Atma Anubhava. Atma and Brahma are one and the same. Elsewhere it is defined like this. Brahma Anubhava is like this. How? Avishayatayaiva vishayanuparakta chitspuranam. Avishayataya eva vishayanuparakta chitspuranam. Chitspuranam, spuranam, experience, direct cognition of chit, chaitanya. How? It is this way, two ways, or two things are involved there. One is avishayataya eva, not as an object of cognition, means pramata is absent. If pramata is there, prameya, the objectification starts. So, avishayataya eva, not in terms of objectification. So, avishayataya eva. And Chaitanya how? Vishayanuparakta. Vishayaihi anuparakta. Not tainted, not mixed with the Vishaya. So therefore, the Nirvishaya, Nirvikalpa, Chaitanya experience, that is what is Brahmanubhava. So it is defined elsewhere. So the chapter is now Atmanubhava Upadesha Varnanam, a description of the experience of Atma Swarupa, which is one's own true nature. On Ashtavakra Gita, there is one Sanskrit tika is available, a very old tika, but the author of this tika, the tikakara, is not known. His name is not there. In that tika book, in the first chapter, only 19 stanzas are mentioned. Actually, there are 20 stanzas only. But what is done there is, the first stanza is enumerated as number 1, and second stanza also is counted as 1. Means the first stanza is not counted in the total stanzas, and so 19 stanzas are there, though 20 stanzas are there. In almost all other books, the serial number is serially the 20 stanzas are counted. Just for information, if in your book some changes are there, so you have to take it for granted that totally they are 20 in number. Let us see now the first stanza. Janaka uvacha katham dhyanamavapnoti katham muktir bhavishyati vairagyam cha katham praptami tad bruhi mama prabhu. Mama prabhu, O revered master, my guru, O guru, prabhu, master. Jnanam katham avapnoti. How is the knowledge gained? And when you say jnana in the context of Vedanta, it is Atma Jnana, Brahma Jnana, because in the Vedantic parlance, Jnana is Advaita Darshanam. The Darshana, the direct cognition of Advaita, the ultimate reality, the non-dual reality, the reality that alone is in non-dual nature. So that is the Advaita Darshanam is Jnanam. The first question is, how this Jnana, Atma Jnana, Brahma Jnana is gained? What for this knowledge is gained? It is meant for gaining moksha. So therefore, kat muktihi katham bhavishyati. How is this mukti accomplished? How this mukti accomplished? Because Atma Jnana confers mukti, moksha. So how is this accomplished? What is the mukti? Mukti can be seen in terms of two facets. Sarvanartha nivrittihi, total cessation of all the sorrows. Sarvanartha nivritti, that is one facet. Paramanandavaptihi, and acquiring the Paramananda, the limitless Ananda, without even the least trace of sorrow. So that is Paramanandavaptihi. Paramanandavaptihi, that is what mukti is. How is it possible? How can it begin? Because the world is such that it is totally full of sorrow And happiness is there, but that happiness is not a limitless happiness or which always is there. It comes and goes. Is it not that so? How such mukti is possible? Yes. For that, it is possible this way. How? Bhashyakara defines moksha in Taittiriya Bhashya and Kena Bhashya as Swatmani avasthanam moksha. What is moksha? Swatmani avasthanam. Avasthanam, abidance or remaining in, or that ekagrata, naishchalyam, where Swatmani, in Atma Swarupa only. Means the mind getting totally absorbed in the Atma Swarupa, in the true nature, without any Vishayabhasa or without any mixing with any Vishaya Rupa, Drishya, Vichar, Anatma, Adhyastha on Atma. So such Atma Swarupa in its true nature. So abidance of the mind, the absorption of the mind in one's own Atma Swarupa, that is what? Moksha. So elsewhere, Madhusudana Saraswati defines moksha in a text called Vedanta Kalpa Latika. Actually, moksha is nothing but Atma Swarupa only. Then if moksha is Atma Swarupa, I am there Atma, why do I not have moksha now? Yes, because presently Atma no doubt is there, because Atma always exists. There is no time when Atma ceases to exist. But presently this Atma is avrita, covered, conditioned by avidya, ignorance, the beginningless ignorance, and its effect avidya karya. This avidya has to be terminated, has to be destroyed. When avidya gets disturbed, the cause being destroyed, the effect avidya karya, all that is adhyastha in terms of samsara gets also terminated. So Madhusudana Saraswati has defined moksha like this. Niratishayananda bodharupaha atma eva. Moksha is the what? Atma itself. And what is its swarupa? Niratishayananda bodharupaha. The one who is bodharupaha. Bodharupaha, the very knowledge principle, whose swarupa is nothing but knowledge principle. And what type of knowledge principle it is? Itself is Niratishayananda, the unparalleled Ananda, the limitless Ananda, Paramananda. So that is what. Then why do we not experience now? Because it is being conditioned, covered by avidya. Therefore, this Atma, how now available, should be available? Anadya vidya nivrityupalakshitaha mokshaha. Atma, but this way. How? Atma eva anadya vidya nivrityupalakshitaha. Upalakshitaha, characterized by nivritti, termination, cessation, destruction of avidya. What type of avidya? Anadi avidya. The anadi avidya nivrityupalakshitaha means niratishaya ananda bodha rupa atma only, but when the beginningless ignorance is totally destroyed, that is what is moksha. So therefore, to gain moksha, one has to totally get rid of the avidya, ignorance of one's own true nature. That is why Atma-jnana is required. Without Atma-jnana, moksha is next to impossible. Now, a seeker who wants to gain moksha knows to some extent that to gain this Atma-jnana or moksha, the scriptures say that one should have vairagya, because presently the mind is totally preoccupied in the Vishayas, the sense objects, to get some tinsels of joys here and there. So therefore, the Vairagya has to be developed. The question comes, what is this Vairagya and how can it be developed? So therefore, next third question is, Vairagyam cha katham praptam. How the Vairagya is attained, how the Vairagya is developed. What is this Vairagya? Vairagya actually is a strong disposition. Strong disposition means a strong cheto vritti, is a mental thought, a vritti, a disposition in the antakarana, a strong disposition, cheto vritti, which is totally opposed to any desire for the things and beings here or hereafter, except for few non-prohibited things like food, clothing, shelter, etc., required to sustain the present body. Means such a disposition wherein the person is totally opposed to any desire for things either here or hereafter, except non-prohibited. Non-prohibited means which should not be nishiddha, anishidha. So things like food, etc., which are basically essential to keep the body continued, that disposition is called Vairagya. It is said, defined somewhere, Vartamana deha sthiti hetva nishiddhanadyatiriktarthe cha viruddha dhrida cheto vritti. Dhrida cheto vritti, a firm, a strong disposition which is against arthecha viruddha. It is opposed to ichcha, desire for any artha, any vishaya here or hereafter. But atirikta, except what? The anishidha, that is, anishidha means not prohibited by the Shastra. What are those? Annadi, the food, etc. What for they are required? Vartamana deha sthiti hetu, which are the means for the sustenance of the present body, except that strong disposition which is totally against all the rest types of desires. That is what is called as Vairagya. It is said like this, Iha mutrartha bhoga viraga. The viraga, total dispassion. So total disinterestedness in the artha bhoga, in the vishayas and their bhoga, iha, here or hereafter, except the minimum required to keep the body going on. That is what Vairagya. So Vairagyam cha katham praptam, how it is gained? So etad bruhi. So please tell me this. Whom it is requested? Who requests this? Janaka Vacha. Janaka request his Guru Ashtavakra. Mama Prabhu, oh my Guru, please tell me how knowledge is gained, how Atma Jnana is gained, how Mukti, Moksha is accomplished, how Vairagya is attained or developed. Please tell me these things. Ashtavakra replies, first he gives the mokshopaya, the upaya for gaining the moksha. What is indispensable to take if one has to gain the moksha? Mukti michhasi chetata vishayan vishavatyaja क्षमार्जवदयातोष सत्यम पीयूषवद्भज। Tata, O dear disciple, muktim ichhasi chet. If you desire for moksha, if you are keen to gain the mukti, moksha, we have seen what moksha is. It is total freedom from all sorrows and accomplishing the limitless ananda, which cannot be anything other than Atma Swarupa, because no other thing can be the source of ananda and be totally free from the sorrows. So, Tata, O dear disciple, Sani, muktim ichhasi chet. So, if you desire for moksha, tarihi to be added, in that case, first thing you do this. What is it? Vishayan vishavat teja. Teja, abandon, totally give up. What? Vishayan, all the vishayas, all the sense objects. Now here, sense objects includes the body also, because the definition of vishaya is like this: Vishinoti badhnati iti vishayaha. That which vishinoti, vishinoti means binds, that which binds is the vishaya. So therefore body also binds. Because of our identification the body, we suffer the sukha dukkhatmaka samsara. So therefore this body also is vishaya only. Vishayan vishavatyaja, please give them up like the poison. Poison is highly damaging. It can be totally detrimental. So therefore, no one would like to have the poison for oneself. So that like poison, please give up the vishaya. Why it is like poison, vishavat? The reason will be given in the 18th stanza afterwards. So you'll find in the 18th stanza afterwards why vishayas are like vishaya. So therefore totally to be given up. But the question comes, how can you give up the vishayas, which includes the body also? You can't give up the body, nor vishaya. So long as you have the body and you are knocking around in the world, you are bound to come in contact with the vishayas. So that means, what is meant by that? So these vishayas, beginning from deha onwards, are anartha hetu. They are the source of sorrow, the source of samsara. So what should be done? One should give up the mindness and I-ness in the vishayas. I-ness in the vishayas like deha, mana, buddhi, prana. Mindness in the vishayas like other than the body, shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha, other than the one's own body. So these objects, mindness in that, this adhyasa of taking the body etc. as I, the other objects in the world as mine, and thinking that they are the sources of joy. So this notion, this adhyasa, this superimposition, this wrong notion should not be taken to by inquiry. It needs to be given up. So therefore, giving up of bahya vishayas means in other terms indriya nigraha, abstaining the indriyas from indulging in the sense object, what is also called as dhamma in Vedantic parlance. So therefore, Ashtavakra recommends dhamma, the mastery over the senses, indriya nigraha, as the first step to gain the Atma Jnana. Because these indriyas are very powerful. They just rob away the viveka of even a Viveki, and make him run after the Vishayas. That is what even Bhagavan Krishna, Lord Krishna, has told in Bhagavad Gita itself. Yatato hapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. Kaunteya, Arjuna, even in the case of such a Purusha, such a person who is vipaschit, who is viveki, and puts forth all efforts to withdraw oneself from the sense object, even in this case, these pramathini indriyani, these indriyas which are very powerful, turbulent, harassing in nature, manaha prasabham haranti, takes away his mind by force to the sense object. So therefore one has to be on one's own guard, and one should have the mastery over the indriyas. That is why Lord Krishna tells there, Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yassendriyani tasya pradnya pratishtita. Having controlled all those indriyas, Yukta asita matparaha, make your mind get absorbed in me, the Paramatma Swarupa, which is your own Swarupa, Atma Swarupa. The one who has got the mastery over the indriyas, his mind, his knowledge, Atma Jnana, becomes steady, and he can become Asthita Pradnya. So in this way, Vishayan Vishavat Teja. So give up the Vishayas like the poison. The adverse effect of indulging in the Vishaya for a mumukshu is very well described in Vivek Chudamani also. Look here. If one wants to make khavo, pivo, maja karo in this world, etc., this Vedanta is not meant for that person. Vedanta is meant for mature person who have already experienced the Vishaya Bhoga in the world and have developed such maturity that this Vishaya Bhoga cannot make me really contented, cannot make me totally contented. Not only that, Vishaya Bhoga is infested with sorrows. So the returns are not in proportion to what the investment is, and therefore, is there something much more worthwhile which is everlasting in terms of happiness? The one who tries to discover like this, so such a person who develops disinterestedness in the Vishayas, though they may give little tinsels of joy here and there, but this person is in for the everlasting Ananda. So from that standpoint, the Shastra says this Vishaya, sense objects, are very dangerous for a Viveki, for a Mumukshu. In Vivek Chudamani, stanza 79, we find Doshena tivro vishayaha Krishna sarpa vishadapi Visham nihanti bhoktaram Drashtaram chakshushaapyayam. Vishaya is much more dangerous than the Visha. Which Visha? Krishna sarpa vishadapi. So then the poison of a crate, a black cobra, which is very, very highly poisonous. So Vishaya, sense objects, are much more dangerous, so much more harmful, damaging than even the poison of a black snake. Why so? He explains, Visham bhoktaram nihanti. Poison kills a person स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्ताम् न्यायेन मार्गेण महीं मनीषाः लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं शोभरहितः ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा